The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning in August of 1882, sealed with the crimson wax of the Kensington family crest, and by Wednesday afternoon, Amelia Kensington was standing on the dusty platform of Lovelock, Nevada, with nothing but a carpetbag, a torn silk dress, and the bitter taste of betrayal still fresh on her tongue. She had expected someone to meet her at the station. Her uncle had written months ago about employment opportunities out west, though she suspected now those promises were as hollow as her father's love had proven to be. The sun beat down mercilessly on the small Nevada town, turning the wooden buildings into shimmering mirages of heat. Sweat trickled down her spine beneath the layers of petticoats and corsetry that marked her as distinctly out of place among the practical frontier women hurrying past with their simple cotton dresses and sunbonnets. Amelia set her carpetbag down and withdrew the telegram that had changed everything. The words were burned into her memory, but she read them anyway, as if repetition might somehow alter their meaning. Father deceased, will contested. Marriage to Theodore Blackstone dissolved by family decree. All assets frozen. Return to Boston inadvisable. Signed, Mother. Not even your mother. Just Mother, as cold and distant as the woman herself had always been. The marriage had lasted 6 weeks. 6 weeks of discovering that Theodore's charm masked a cruel streak as wide as the Mississippi. 6 weeks of realizing her family cared more about social standing than her happiness. 6 weeks of gathering the courage to leave. She had written to her father, begging him to understand, to help her escape. His response had been to cut her off entirely, declaring her dead to the family. 3 months later, he actually was dead, and her brothers had wasted no time in ensuring she inherited nothing. "You look lost, miss." The voice startled her from her dark thoughts. She turned to find a man standing a respectful distance away, his hat held politely in his hands. He was tall and lean, with sun-bronzed skin and dark hair that curled slightly at his collar. His eyes were a striking green, the color of spring grass, and they regarded her with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "I am somewhat displaced," Amelia admitted, lifting her chin with what remained of her Boston pride. "I was meant to meet my uncle here, but it appears he has been detained." The man's expression shifted, something uncomfortable flickering across his features. "Your uncle wouldn't happen to be Marcus Hartwell, would it?" Amelia's heart sank. "You know him." "Knew him, madam. I am sorry to be the bearer of bad news, but Mr. Hartwell passed on about 2 months back." Pneumonia took him quick. The world tilted slightly. Amelia gripped the handle of her carpetbag tighter, focusing on the bite of the wicker against her palm to keep herself steady. 2 months. Her uncle had been dead for 2 months, and she had traveled all this way to a town where she knew no one, had no prospects, and apparently no future. "I see," she managed, her voice admirably steady. "Thank you for informing me." The man shifted his weight, clearly uncomfortable. "Do you have anywhere to go, miss? I will find accommodations." She had exactly $7 to her name, the sum total of what she had managed to save from her allowance before her family had cut her off. It would buy her perhaps a week at a boarding house, if she was frugal. "The boarding house is full up," the man said, as if reading her thoughts. "There is a big cattle drive coming through next week, and everyone is booked solid. But my name is Vincent Kane, and I work the ranch just outside of town. We lost our cook last month when she married and moved to California. If you are willing to work, there is a job and a place to stay." Amelia studied him carefully. He had an honest face, weathered by sun and wind but not hardened by cruelty. His clothes were clean but worn, the clothes of a working man. His hands, she noticed, bore the calluses of someone who knew hard labor. "A cook," she said slowly. I should tell you, Mr. Kane, that I have never cooked a day in my life. I would not want to accept employment under false pretenses." His mouth quirked slightly, not quite a smile. "Can you learn?" "I can learn anything," Amelia said firmly, surprised by the conviction in her own voice. "Then that is settled. Come on, the wagon is this way." She hesitated for only a moment before following him. What choice did she have? Sleep in the streets with $7 in her pocket, or take a chance on this stranger's kindness? Her family had taught her that trusting people led to disappointment, but her family had also abandoned her when she needed them most. Perhaps it was time to write her own rules. The wagon was simple but sturdy, pulled by two solid horses. Vincent helped her up onto the bench seat with surprising gentleness for hands that looked so work-roughened. He settled beside her, keeping a proper distance, and clicked his tongue to set the horses moving. "How long have you worked at this ranch?" Amelia asked as they left the town behind, the buildings giving way to scrubland dotted with sagebrush. "I do not work at it," Vincent said. "I own it, or at least, I will when I finish paying off the loan. Bought it 3 years ago from a man who wanted to go back east. Been building it up since then." "You own a ranch?" Amelia could not quite keep the surprise from her voice. "Does that bother you?" "No, I simply assumed." She trailed off, realizing how rude she was being. "You assumed a ranch owner would not be doing his own errands in town," Vincent finished for her. "I only have 2 other hands working for me right now, and they are both out checking the fence line. Ranch is not big enough yet to support a full crew, so we all do what needs doing." There was no shame in his voice, only a quiet pride that Amelia found oddly compelling. Her father had owned a shipping empire and 3 houses, but she had never heard him speak of his work with the same genuine satisfaction she heard in Vincent Kane's simple statement. The ranch, when they arrived, was modest but well-maintained. The main house was a single-story structure built of wood that had weathered to a silvery gray. A porch wrapped around the front, and someone had planted roses near the steps, their red blooms a defiant splash of color against the muted landscape. Beyond the house stood a barn, a corral with several horses, and what looked like a bunkhouse for the ranch hands. Vincent helped her down from the wagon, and Amelia took a moment to stretch her legs, feeling the stiffness from hours of train travel and the wagon ride. A dog appeared from somewhere, a black and white cattle dog with intelligent eyes, and came to investigate her with friendly curiosity. "That is Scout," Vincent said. "She is harmless, just nosy." Amelia bent to scratch the dog's ears, earning an appreciative tail wag. "Hello, Scout. Let me show you the house," Vincent said, leading her up the porch steps. The interior was simple but clean, with sturdy furniture that looked handmade and serviceable. The main room served as both a sitting area and a dining space, with a large table that could seat 8. Beyond it, she could see the kitchen, which was surprisingly spacious. "The bedrooms are down that hall," Vincent indicated. "There are 3 of them. Mine is at the end. The middle one is empty, and that is where you would stay. The third is for the hands when weather is too rough for the bunkhouse, but mostly it stays empty. There is a washroom too, though the water has to be heated on the stove." Amelia nodded, taking it all in. It was so different from the sprawling Boston mansion she had grown up in, with its 12 bedrooms and staff of 15. But there was something appealing about the simplicity of it, the honesty of a space built for living rather than impressing. "The pay is $15 a month, plus room and board," Vincent continued. "You would be responsible for cooking 3 meals a day for myself and the 2 hands, keeping the house clean and helping with the vegetable garden out back. Does that sound acceptable? $15 a month." Amelia had spent more than that on a single hat in Boston. But here now it represented security, independence. "It sounds more than acceptable," she said. "When would you like me to start? Are you hungry now?" Amelia realized she was starving. She had not eaten since a stale roll at a train station that morning. "I am," she admitted. "Then I guess you start now," Vincent said, and this time he did smile, a real smile that crinkled the corners of his eyes and transformed his entire face. "I will show you where everything is." The kitchen was better stocked than Amelia had expected, with flour and cornmeal in large bins, dried beans and rice in jars, and a surprising variety of spices. Vincent explained that the ranch kept chickens for eggs, and they had a milk cow named Daisy who was temperamental but productive. There was a smokehouse with preserved meats and a root cellar for vegetables. "The hands usually make do with beans and biscuits," Vincent said. "Anything more complicated than that will be a treat." Amelia surveyed the kitchen with growing trepidation. She had watched cooks work, certainly, but watching and doing were entirely different matters. Still, she had not lied when she said she could learn. She had learned to speak 3 languages, to paint watercolors, to play piano, to manage a household staff of 15. Surely she could learn to cook a simple meal. "I will need you to show me how to work the stove," she said. Vincent's eyebrows rose slightly, but he nodded and walked her through the process of building up the fire, adjusting the damper and managing the heat. Amelia watched carefully, committing each step to memory. By the time she had managed to produce a passable pot of beans, fried some salt pork, and attempted biscuits that were only slightly burned on the bottom, the sun was setting and 2 more men had arrived. Vincent introduced them as Jack Riley and Tom Chen, the ranch hands. Jack was a freckled young man who could not have been more than 20, with a quick smile and an easy manner. Tom was older, perhaps 40, with the weathered look of a man who had spent his entire life outdoors. Both men removed their hats respectfully when introduced to Amelia. They sat down to dinner at the big table, and Amelia braced herself for criticism of her cooking. But the men ate with the enthusiasm of people who had been living on their own poor efforts, and even the burned biscuits disappeared. "This is the best meal we have had in a month," Jack declared, and Tom nodded agreement. "It is adequate at best," Amelia said honestly, "but I promise to improve." "Where are you from, Miss Kensington?" Tom asked. "If you do not mind my asking, your accent says East Coast." "Boston," Amelia said shortly, hoping they would not press for details. "Long way from home," Jack observed. "This is my home now," Amelia said firmly, and was surprised to find she meant it. After dinner, Vincent showed her to her room while the hands headed out to the bunkhouse. The space was small but clean, with a simple bed, a dresser, and a washstand. Someone had left a rag rug beside the bed and hung curtains at the window, small touches that made the room feel less austere. "There are extra blankets in the trunk," Vincent said from the doorway. "It gets cold at night, even in summer. If you need anything, just knock." "Thank you," Amelia said, "for everything, for giving me a chance." Vincent was quiet for a moment, his green eyes thoughtful. "Everyone deserves a chance, Miss Kensington. Sleep well." He closed the door softly behind him, and Amelia was alone for the first time since boarding the train in Boston. She sank down onto the bed, her body aching with exhaustion, her mind reeling with the changes of the past few days. She should have been overwhelmed, terrified, grieving. Instead, she felt a strange sense of lightness, as if she had shed some enormous burden. Her family had disowned her. They had declared her dead to them. But sitting in this simple room in a ranch house in Nevada, Amelia felt more alive than she had in years. The weeks that followed were the hardest and most rewarding of Amelia's life. She woke before dawn each morning to stoke the fire and start breakfast. Her first attempts at cooking were disastrous. She burned oatmeal, oversalted stews, and created biscuits that Jack joked could be used as building materials. But she persisted, and gradually, she improved. Vincent was patient, showing her tricks he had learned during his years of cooking for himself. Tom contributed recipes his mother had taught him. Even Jack helped, though his culinary knowledge was limited to the best way to cook eggs. Amelia's hands, which had never done more than hold a book or embroider a handkerchief, grew rough with work. She learned to knead bread dough, to pluck chickens, to churn butter. She learned to read the stove's temperament to judge when the heat was right for baking. She learned to make do with what was available, to stretch supplies, to waste nothing. But she also learned things she had not expected. She learned the satisfaction of seeing men enjoy food she had prepared. She learned the pleasure of a garden thriving under her care. She learned the rhythm of ranch life, the early mornings and long days, the simple routines that marked the passage of time. And she learned about Vincent Kane. He was a private man, not given to unnecessary conversation, but Amelia began to understand him through his actions. He was fair with his workers, paying them on time and working alongside them rather than above them. He was kind to his animals, gentle even with the most difficult horse. He was honest in his dealings, returning to town to pay a shopkeeper when he realized he had been given too much change. He had been born in Kansas, she learned, to a father who drank too much and a mother who had died when Vincent was 12. He had worked various jobs, saving every penny until he had enough to buy this ranch. It was not much yet, but it was his, and he had plans to expand it, to build something lasting. Why ranching? Amelia asked him one evening as they sat on the porch after dinner. It had become a habit, these quiet conversations as the day cooled and the stars emerged. Jack and Tom had gone to the bunkhouse, and Scout lay at their feet, occasionally twitching in her sleep. "I like the work," Vincent said simply. "I like building something with my own hands. I like watching the cattle grow, the land improve, and I like being my own man, not answering to anyone." "Your own man," Amelia repeated softly. "I think I understand that better than I once would have." Vincent looked at her, his expression curious. "You never talk about Boston." "There is not much to say." "I do not believe that. A woman like you does not end up alone in Nevada without a story." Amelia was quiet for a long moment. She had not spoken of her past to anyone since arriving, had tried to bury it along with her old life. But sitting here in the gentle darkness, with Vincent's steady presence beside her, she found the words coming. "I was supposed to be the perfect daughter," she began. "Beautiful, accomplished, obedient, and I was for a very long time. I did everything they asked. I learned everything they wanted me to learn, and when they chose a husband for me, I agreed." "What happened?" Vincent's voice was gentle. "I married Theodore Blackstone, and I discovered that a charming smile can hide a terrible temper. He was cruel when he did not get his way, and he expected absolute obedience. When I finally found the courage to leave him, my family was horrified, not by his behavior but by my defiance. My father disowned me. That must have hurt." "It did," Amelia admitted. "But what hurt more was realizing that they had never really loved me. They loved the idea of me, the perfect daughter they could show off and marry to the right family. The real me, with my own thoughts and desires and boundaries, I was an inconvenience." Vincent was quiet, and Amelia worried she had said too much, revealed too much weakness, but when he spoke his voice was warm. "Their loss," he said simply. "What? It was their loss. Anyone who could not see your worth, who could not appreciate your courage in leaving a bad situation, who valued their pride over their daughter, they lost something precious. That is their failure, not yours." Amelia felt tears sting her eyes. In all the months since leaving Boston, No one had said anything like that to her. No one had suggested that perhaps her family was wrong, that she had value beyond her usefulness to them. "Thank you," she whispered. They sat in companionable silence after that, and Amelia felt something shift between them, some barrier falling away. She had thought of Vincent as her employer, her benefactor. But in that moment, she began to think of him as something else. A friend, perhaps, or possibly something more. Autumn arrived with cooler temperatures and the hard work of preparing for winter. There were cattle to be moved to lower pastures, fences to be repaired, supplies to be laid in for the cold months ahead. Amelia worked alongside the men, learning new skills. She could handle a horse now, though not with Vincent's easy grace. She could mend tack, stack hay, even help with the basic work of herding when an extra hand was needed. The people of Lovelock had been curious about her at first, this Eastern woman living out at the Kane ranch. But Amelia made friends among the other women, particularly Sarah Mitchell, who ran the general store with her husband. Sarah was practical and kind, with 6 children and a no-nonsense attitude that Amelia admired. "You have changed," Sarah observed one afternoon when Amelia came to town for supplies. "You look different than when you first arrived." Amelia glanced at her reflection in the store's window. Sarah was right. The pale, fragile woman who had stepped off the train 4 months ago was gone. In her place stood someone sun-browned and strong, with capable hands and direct eyes. "I feel different," Amelia admitted. "It suits you," Sarah said with approval. "And I see the way Vincent Kane looks at you. That man is smitten." "Sarah, he is my employer." "He is a man, and you are a beautiful woman living under his roof. You think I have not noticed how he finds excuses to be near you, how he lights up when you smile." Amelia felt her cheeks warm. She had noticed Vincent's attention, the way his eyes followed her when he thought she was not looking, the way he always saved the best portions of meat for her plate, the way he had given her his own jacket when a sudden cold snap caught them on the range. "Even if that were true," Amelia said carefully, "I am not sure I am ready for that. My marriage to Theodore." "Was not a marriage," Sarah interrupted firmly. "It was a prison sentence. But not all men are like Theodore Blackstone, Amelia. Some men are good through and through. Vincent Kane is one of them." Amelia carried Sarah's words home with her, turning them over in her mind as the wagon rattled along the familiar road. Was she ready to trust again, to open her heart to the possibility of love? The question became more urgent as winter set in. The work slowed, and the long evenings grew longer. There was more time for conversation, for sitting by the fire while snow fell outside. More time to notice the way Vincent's hands moved as he carved a new handle for a tool. More time to catch him watching her with an expression that made her heart race. One evening in December, Tom and Jack had gone into town for a dance at the community hall. Vincent had been invited too, but he had claimed tiredness and stayed home. Amelia had stayed as well, using the excuse of wanting to finish mending a shirt. But the truth was that she preferred his quiet company to the noise of a dance. They sat by the fire, Amelia with her sewing and Vincent ostensibly reading a livestock report, though she noticed he had been on the same page for 15 minutes. "Amelia," he said suddenly, setting down the paper, "I need to say something, and I need you to let me finish before you respond." She set down her sewing, her heart beginning to pound. "All right." Vincent stood, too restless to sit, and moved to the fireplace. He stared into the flames for a moment before turning to face her. "When you arrived here, I offered you a job because you needed help, and I needed a cook." That was the truth, but it stopped being the whole truth about a week later. By then, I had started to care about you. By the end of the first month, I was watching for your smile like a lovesick fool. And now, 6 months later, I cannot imagine this house, this ranch, this life, without you in it." Amelia's breath caught. She wanted to speak, but he had asked her to let him finish. "I know you have been hurt," Vincent continued. "I know you have reasons to be wary. And I know I am just a rancher with more debts than assets, trying to build something in the middle of nowhere. But I am also a man who loves you, Amelia Kensington. I love your courage, your determination, your kindness. I love the way you sing when you think no one is listening. I love how you have taken to this life like you were born to it. I love you, and I would spend the rest of my days trying to prove that not all men are like the ones who hurt you." He stopped, breathing hard, his eyes fixed on her face. Amelia stood slowly, her legs unsteady. She crossed the room until she stood directly in front of him. "I am afraid," she admitted. "I am afraid of trusting again, of being vulnerable again. Theodore made me feel small and worthless. My family made me feel like I did not matter." "You matter to me," Vincent said fiercely. "You matter more than anything." "I know," Amelia said, and she reached up to touch his face, feeling the rough stubble beneath her palm. "And that is exactly what frightens me. Because if I let myself love you, if I let myself believe in this, and it goes wrong—" "It will not go wrong," Vincent said, covering her hand with his own. "I cannot promise we will not have hard times. This is a tough life and there will be struggles. But I can promise that I will never lie to you, never belittle you, never make you feel less than the remarkable woman you are. I will spend every day trying to be worthy of you." "You already are," Amelia whispered. "Vincent, you already are." And then she was kissing him, or he was kissing her, and it did not matter who moved first because they were together, finally. His arms came around her, strong and sure, and she melted into his embrace. This was nothing like the cold, demanding kisses Theodore had forced on her. This was warmth and tenderness and promise. When they finally broke apart, both breathing heavily, Vincent rested his forehead against hers. "Marry me," he said. "I know it is fast and I know you have reasons to be cautious, but marry me, Amelia. Build this life with me. Let me love you the way you deserve." Amelia thought of Boston, of the grand wedding her family had planned for her marriage to Theodore. Hundreds of guests, an elaborate dress, a ceremony designed to impress. None of it had mattered. The trappings of wealth and status had not protected her from cruelty. But here, in this simple ranch house with this honest man looking at her like she held the sun and stars, Amelia felt safe. She felt cherished. She felt free. "Yes," she said. "Yes, I will marry you." Vincent's face lit up with pure joy. He lifted her off her feet, spinning her around, and Scout barked excitedly from her place by the hearth, caught up in the happiness even if she did not understand its source. They were married 2 weeks later in a simple ceremony at the church in Lovelock. Sarah Mitchell stood as Amelia's witness, beaming with satisfaction at having predicted the match. Tom stood for Vincent, solemn and pleased. Jack could not stop grinning through the entire service. The minister, an elderly man named Reverend Parsons, pronounced them husband and wife with genuine warmth, and the small congregation that had gathered applauded as Vincent kissed his bride. Amelia wore a simple dress of blue cotton that Sarah had helped her make, with lace at the collar and cuffs. She had no veil, no elaborate train, no orchestra playing Mendelssohn. But she had never felt more beautiful than when she saw herself reflected in Vincent's eyes as he took her hand. The reception was held at the Mitchells' home, a cramped but cheerful affair with everyone in town invited. There was food and music and dancing, and for the first time in her life, Amelia danced without counting steps or worrying about proper form. She just moved to the music, held in her husband's arms, and felt joy bubble up inside her like a spring. "Are you happy?" Vincent asked as they swayed to a fiddle tune. "Deliriously," Amelia said, and meant it with every fiber of her being. They left the party as the sun was setting, riding back to the ranch in the wagon with tin cans tied to the back courtesy of Jack's sense of humor. The noise scared some cattle in a nearby field, and Vincent laughed, the sound rich and free. Amelia had not heard him laugh like that before, and she realized with a start that he had been holding back too, protecting his heart just as she had been protecting hers. But they were done holding back now. Their wedding night was tender and sweet, Vincent patient as Amelia worked through her fear, whispering reassurances and promises until she finally relaxed into his touch. This was nothing like the brutal encounters with Theodore, which had left her feeling used and empty. This was mutual and consensual and filled with love, and when she finally fell asleep in Vincent's arms, Amelia felt whole for the first time in her life. The winter passed in a glow of newlywed happiness. Amelia learned what it meant to be partners with someone, to work together towards shared goals. She and Vincent talked for hours about their plans for the ranch, for their future. He valued her opinions, asked for her input, treated her like an equal partner in every decision. They also learned to navigate the small frictions of two people learning to live together. Vincent left his boots in the middle of the floor. Amelia used too much firewood and had to be reminded they needed to conserve supplies. Vincent liked his coffee strong enough to strip paint. Amelia preferred tea, but these were small things, easily resolved with patience and compromise and humor. In February, Amelia missed her monthly courses. She waited another month to be sure before telling Vincent, choosing a quiet evening when they were alone to share the news. "I am going to have a baby," she said, watching his face carefully for his reaction. Vincent's eyes went wide. "A baby? You are certain as I can be." "I believe the baby will arrive in September." Vincent whooped loudly, startling Scout awake, and grabbed Amelia in a hug that lifted her feet off the floor. "We are having a baby. Amelia, we are having a baby." His joy was infectious, chasing away the small fears Amelia had harbored about how he would react. They spent the rest of the evening making plans, arguing cheerfully about names and whether they should add a room to the house, or whether the third bedroom would be sufficient. "Are you scared?" Vincent asked as they lay in bed that night, his hand resting protectively on her still flat stomach. "A little," Amelia admitted. "I did not have the best example of motherhood growing up." "Then you already know exactly what not to do," Vincent said. "And besides, our child will be lucky to have you. You are strong and kind and fierce when you need to be. You will be an amazing mother." Amelia blinked back tears. "And you will be an amazing father." "I am going to try," Vincent said seriously. "I want our child to grow up knowing they are loved, knowing they matter, knowing they can be whoever they want to be." "They will," Amelia promised. "We will make sure of it." Spring brought new life to the ranch in more ways than one. The cattle began calving, and Vincent was up at all hours helping with difficult births and checking on the herd. Amelia's pregnancy began to show, her dresses growing tight across the middle. She had to let out seams and adjust waistlines, and eventually resorted to wearing some of Vincent's shirts over her skirts. Sarah Mitchell proved to be a wealth of information about pregnancy and childbirth, having been through it 6 times herself. She loaned Amelia books and gave practical advice about everything from morning sickness to preparing for labor. The other women in town embraced Amelia as one of their own, organizing a quilting bee where they made baby blankets and clothing. Amelia was touched by their generosity, so different from the superficial friendships of Boston society. These women had hard lives, facing challenges Amelia could never have imagined in her pampered youth. But they were genuine in their affection and generous with their time and resources. She had found a real community here, something she had never had before. In late April, a letter arrived from Boston. Amelia saw the familiar handwriting on the envelope and felt her stomach drop. It was from her brother, Edmund. She carried the letter to the bedroom before opening it, needing privacy for whatever it contained. Vincent found her there an hour later, sitting on the bed with tears streaming down her face. What happened? He was at her side instantly, wrapping his arms around her. Is it bad news? No, Amelia managed. No, it is good news, I think. I do not know. Vincent took the letter gently from her trembling hands and read it aloud. Edmund wrote that their mother had fallen ill over the winter and nearly died. The experience had changed her, made her reflect on her choices and her treatment of Amelia. She had expressed regret for how things had ended, for choosing social standing over her daughter. Edmund himself admitted he had been wrong to go along with cutting Amelia off from her inheritance. He wanted to make amends. The letter included a bank draft for $10,000, Amelia's share of their father's estate that her brothers had initially kept from her. Edmund wrote that their mother wanted to meet Amelia's husband and expressed hope that reconciliation might be possible. $10,000, Vincent said softly. Amelia, do you know what this means? We could pay off the ranch loan. We could buy more cattle, hire more hands. We could build the house bigger, make real improvements. But Amelia was not thinking about the money. She was thinking about her mother's regret, about Edmund's apology. Part of her, the wounded part that had been rejected and dismissed, wanted to tear up the letter and send it back. But another part, the part that had grown stronger over the past year, recognized the courage it took to admit being wrong. What do you want to do? Vincent asked, setting the letter aside and taking her hands in his. I do not know, Amelia admitted. I do not know if I can forgive them. I do not know if I want them in my life again. You do not have to decide right now, Vincent said. Take your time, think about it. Whatever you decide, I will support you. Amelia leaned against him, drawing strength from his solid presence. What would you do? I am not sure I am the right person to ask, Vincent said slowly. I lost my mother when I was 12, and I would give anything for one more conversation with her. But I also know that not all relationships are worth preserving. Family does not give someone the right to hurt you. No, Amelia agreed. It does not. She thought about it for several days, weighing her feelings against the facts of the situation. Finally, she wrote back to Edmund. She thanked him for the money and for his honesty. She said she was willing to correspond with him and their mother, but that trust would have to be rebuilt slowly. She told him about her marriage, about the baby she was expecting, about the life she had built in Nevada. And she made it clear that while she was open to reconciliation, she would not tolerate any criticism of her choices or any attempt to control her life. She also returned half of the money, keeping $5,000, but insisting that Edmund divide the rest equally among their siblings. She did not want there to be any question of her being motivated by greed. Are you sure? Vincent asked when she told him her decision. That money is rightfully yours. I am sure, Amelia said firmly. We need $5,000 to improve the ranch and prepare for the baby. The rest would just be excess, and I want Edmund to know that I do not need their money to survive. I have built a good life here, with or without their support. Vincent pulled her close, his hand resting on her swelling belly where their child grew. I love you, he said. Have I told you that today? Only 3 times, Amelia said, smiling, but I will never tire of hearing it. Summer arrived with blazing heat and long days of work. Amelia was heavily pregnant now, her movements slowed by the weight she carried. Vincent fussed over her constantly, insisting she rest and not overwork herself. She appreciated his concern but also chafed at being treated like she was fragile. "I am pregnant, not dying," she told him one afternoon when he tried to take a basket of laundry from her hands. "I know," Vincent said, "but you are carrying the most precious cargo in the world, and I would rather you be annoyed with me than risk anything happening to you or the baby." How could she argue with that? Amelia let him take the basket, touched by his protectiveness, even as it frustrated her. In August, with the baby due in just a few weeks, letters began arriving regularly from Boston. Edmund wrote about the family, about business matters, about their mother's improving health. His tone was tentative but genuine, and Amelia found herself looking forward to his correspondence. Her mother wrote too, stiff and formal at first but gradually warming. She asked questions about Nevada, about Vincent, about the baby. She sent a package with beautifully embroidered baby gowns and a silver rattle that had belonged to Amelia as an infant. "She is trying," Sarah observed when Amelia showed her the package. "Whether her efforts are enough is up to you." "I think I am ready to forgive her," Amelia admitted. "Not to forget, but to forgive. Life is too short to carry so much anger." "That is very wise," Sarah said. "Though I suspect impending motherhood has made you philosophical," Amelia laughed. "Possibly. I keep thinking about what kind of mother I want to be, what kind of home I want to create. And I realize that I want our child to grow up seeing forgiveness and second chances, not just grudges and bitterness." The baby arrived on a sweltering night in early September, after 18 hours of labor that left Amelia exhausted, and Vincent looking nearly as haggard. Dr. Peterson, the town physician, attended the birth along with Sarah Mitchell, and both declared it a textbook delivery despite the length. "You have a daughter," Dr. Peterson announced, placing the squalling infant in Amelia's arms. "Healthy lungs, 10 fingers, 10 toes. She is perfect." Amelia stared down at the tiny, red-faced creature in her arms and felt her heart expand to accommodate an entirely new dimension of love. The baby had Vincent's dark hair and Amelia's delicate features, and she was the most beautiful thing Amelia had ever seen. "Hello, little one," she whispered. "I am your mama." Vincent stood beside the bed, tears streaming unashamedly down his face. "She is perfect," he said, his voice rough with emotion. "You are both perfect." They named her Victoria Amelia Kane, called Vicky for short. Vincent joked that it was only right that a child conceived in victory over past sorrows should bear such a name. Amelia thought it was perfect. The first weeks of motherhood were challenging in ways Amelia had not anticipated. Vicky was a good baby overall, but she had her fussy moments, and Amelia was learning everything on the fly. Sarah proved invaluable, stopping by daily to check on them and offer advice. Vincent helped whenever he could, walking the floor with Vicky at night so Amelia could rest, changing diapers without complaint, gazing at his daughter with an expression of such complete adoration that it made Amelia's heart ache. "You are a natural father," she told him one evening as she watched him rock Vicky to sleep. "I have a lot of time to make up for," Vincent said softly. "My father was not around much, and when he was usually drunk. I swore I would be different if I ever had children." "You are different," Amelia assured him. "You are everything he was not." In October, Edmund wrote with surprising news. He was planning to visit Nevada on business and asked if he might stop at the ranch to meet Vincent and see his new niece. Amelia discussed it with Vincent, and they agreed to extend the invitation, though Amelia felt nervous about seeing her brother again after nearly 2 years. Edmund arrived on a crisp autumn afternoon, stepping down from a hired carriage wearing an expensive suit that looked utterly out of place against the ranch's rustic setting. But his smile was genuine as he approached the house, and when Amelia came out to greet him, he pulled her into a careful hug. "You look wonderful," he said, studying her face. "Truly, Amelia, you look happy." "I am happy," she said simply. Edmund turned to Vincent, who had come to stand protectively beside his wife. The two men sized each other up for a moment before Edmund extended his hand. "Vincent Kane, I presume. I am Edmund Kensington. Thank you for taking care of my sister." "I did not take care of her," Vincent said, shaking Edmund's hand firmly. "She takes care of herself. I just had the good fortune to be here." Edmund smiled at that. "I suspect you have done more than you are admitting, but I appreciate the sentiment." They invited Edmund inside, and Amelia brought out Vicky to meet her uncle. Edmund held the baby awkwardly, clearly inexperienced with infants, but his expression softened as he looked down at her. "She has your eyes, Amelia," he said, "and she is beautiful. Thank you." Edmund stayed for 3 days, and in that time, many old wounds began to heal. He was honest about his failures, about how he had gone along with their father's decision to disown Amelia because it was easier than standing up for what was right. He admitted that he had been jealous of her courage in leaving Theodore, that he himself was trapped in a loveless marriage but lacked the strength to do anything about it. "I admire you," he told Amelia on his last evening at the ranch. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and purple. "You gave up everything to build a life on your own terms. That takes real courage." "I did not give up everything," Amelia corrected. "I gave up false things. Wealth without love, status without respect, family connections without genuine affection. What I have now is real. It matters." Edmund looked around at the ranch, at Vincent working in the corral, at the simple house with smoke curling from the chimney. "You are right," he said quietly. "What you have here is worth more than anything in Boston." Before he left, Edmund pulled Vincent aside for a private conversation. Amelia watched from the window as the two men talked, unable to hear their words but able to see their body language. Whatever Edmund said, Vincent listened intently, and when they shook hands at the end, there was a new understanding between them. "What did he say to you?" Amelia asked after Edmund's carriage had disappeared down the road. Vincent wrapped his arms around her from behind, resting his chin on the top of her head. "He thanked me for loving you the way you deserve. He said that your happiness is the only thing that matters, and that he is grateful you found someone who understands that." "He really has changed," Amelia said. "People can change," Vincent agreed. "When they want to, when they realize what they have lost." As winter approached again, Amelia reflected on the extraordinary year she had experienced. She had gone from a disowned heiress with nowhere to turn to a wife, mother, and equal partner in a thriving ranch. The $5,000 from her inheritance had allowed them to pay off a significant portion of the ranch loan and make improvements to the property. They had hired 2 more hands, expanding the operation. They had added a room to the house for Vicky and planned to add more as their family grew. But more than the material improvements, Amelia marveled at the emotional growth she had experienced. She was no longer the frightened woman who had stepped off the train in Lovelock, desperate and alone. She was strong now, confident, secure in herself and in Vincent's love. She had learned that family was not just about blood relations, but about the people who showed up for you, who supported you, who loved you without conditions. On their first wedding anniversary, Vincent surprised her with a gift. It was a small painting he had commissioned from a traveling artist, depicting the ranch house with Amelia standing on the porch, holding Vicky in her arms. In the background, Vincent could be seen working with the horses, and Scout lay at Amelia's feet. "It is our family," Vincent said as Amelia stared at the painting with tears in her eyes. "Our home. Everything that matters. It is perfect, Amelia whispered. Vincent, it is perfect. They hung the painting in the main room where it could be seen from the dining table. Amelia looked at it often, still amazed that this life was hers, that she had found love and acceptance and purpose in the most unexpected place. That evening, after Vicky had been put to bed and the house was quiet, Vincent and Amelia sat on the porch as they had so many times before. The November air was cold and they huddled together under a thick blanket. "You ever miss Boston?" Vincent asked. Amelia considered the question seriously. Did she miss the grand houses, the elaborate parties, the luxury she had once taken for granted? Did she miss her old life? "No," she said finally. "Not for a moment. That life was beautiful on the surface but hollow underneath. This life is hard sometimes, but it is real. It is mine. Ours." Vincent pulled her closer, his breath warm against her temple. "Their loss built my whole world," he said softly. Amelia pulled back slightly to look at him. "What? Your family's loss," Vincent explained. "When they disowned you, when they turned their backs on you, they lost something precious. But their loss gave me everything. It brought you here. It built my whole world." Amelia felt tears slide down her cheeks. It was true. Her family's rejection, which had felt like the end of everything, had actually been the beginning. It had led her here, to this man, to this life, to a happiness she could never have found if she had stayed in Boston. "Their loss built my whole world too," she said. "Because you are my world, Vincent Kane. You and Vicky and this ranch and this life, you are everything." Vincent kissed her then, gentle and sweet, a kiss full of promise and love. When they finally broke apart, both smiling, Amelia rested her head on his shoulder and looked up at the stars scattered across the Nevada sky. "I am glad I got on that train," she said. "So am I," Vincent replied. "So am I." The years that followed were filled with the normal joys and challenges of life. There were good years when the cattle thrived and the ranch prospered, and lean years when drought or disease tested their resilience. There were more children, 3 more in total, each one loved and cherished. Their second child, a boy they named Victor, arrived 2 years after Vicky. Then came twins, a boy and a girl they named Andrew and Alice. The ranch grew slowly but steadily. By 1890, they owned twice as much land as they had started with and ran a herd of over 300 cattle. Vincent hired a foreman to manage the day-to-day operations, allowing him to focus on the business side of ranching. Amelia became known throughout the territory for her hospitality and her work with the local school, which she helped establish and support. Edmund visited regularly, and eventually, he found the courage to leave his own unhappy marriage. He moved to San Francisco and started a new life, one he chose for himself rather than one dictated by family expectations. He remained close to Amelia, and his visits were eagerly anticipated by the Kane children, who adored their unconventional uncle. Amelia's mother wrote faithfully, and while the relationship never fully recovered its warmth, there was peace between them. When Amelia's mother died in 1895, Amelia traveled to Boston for the funeral. It was her first time back in 13 years, and she was struck by how foreign the city felt. She no longer belonged there. Her home was in Nevada with Vincent and their children. The Kensington fortune had grown substantially over the years, and Amelia inherited a significant sum when her mother passed. But she and Vincent had learned long ago that money was just a tool. They used it wisely, investing in the ranch and the community, but never letting it define them. One evening in the spring of 1900, Amelia and Vincent sat on their porch watching the sunset. It was a ritual they had maintained for 18 years, this quiet time together at the end of each day. The porch was larger now, part of the additions they had made to the house over the years. The roses Amelia had planted when she first arrived had grown into massive bushes that perfumed the air with their scent. Their children were grown, or nearly so. Vicky was 17 and planned to attend college in California, much to Vincent's consternation and Amelia's delight. Victor was 15 and already showing promise as a horseman. The twins were 12 and inseparable, constantly getting into mischief. "You remember the day you arrived?" Vincent asked, his hand finding hers as naturally as breathing. "Every detail," Amelia said. "I was so scared, so lost." "You did not look scared. You looked proud, defiant, like you were daring the world to knock you down again. I felt like I had already been knocked down as far as I could go, but you got back up. With your help." Vincent squeezed her hand. "We helped each other. It was true." Vincent had given Amelia a chance when she had nothing, but she had given him something too. She had believed in his dream of building something lasting. She had worked alongside him, fought beside him, built this life with him. They were partners in every sense of the word. "I would do it all again," Amelia said softly. "Every hardship, every struggle, all of it was worth it to end up here with you." "Me too," Vincent said. "Though I would prefer to skip the part where you married Theodore Blackstone." Amelia laughed. "I would prefer to skip that part as well. But it taught me what I did not want in a marriage, which made me appreciate what we have all the more." They sat in companionable silence, watching as the sky shifted from orange to pink to purple. Scout had passed on years ago, but her great-granddaughter, a dog they had named Dakota, lay at their feet. The sound of laughter drifted from the barn where the twins were supposed to be doing evening chores but were clearly playing instead. "We should probably go check on them," Vincent said without making any move to stand. "Probably," Amelia agreed, equally content to stay where she was. "In a minute. In a minute." They stayed there until the first stars appeared, until the air grew cool enough that Amelia shivered and Vincent wrapped his arm around her. They stayed there because this was their time, their ritual, their reminder of how far they had come and how blessed they were. When they finally rose to go inside, Vincent paused at the door and looked back at the ranch spread out before them. The house with its welcoming lights, the barn and corrals, the land stretching as far as the eye could see, the life they had built together. "Thank you," he said. "For what?" Amelia asked. "For taking a chance on a cowboy with more dreams than money, for building this with me, for loving me." Amelia stood on her toes to kiss him, still feeling that flutter in her chest that she had felt the first time they kissed 18 years ago. "Their loss built my whole world," she whispered against his lips. "Thank you for being my whole world." Vincent smiled, that same smile that had won her heart in a dusty ranch house so long ago. "Always," he promised. "Always." They went inside together, hand in hand, to the life they had chosen and the love they had built. Outside, the Nevada night settled over the ranch, peaceful and perfect. The Kane Ranch, with its sturdy fences and thriving cattle, its well-built house and happy family, stood as a testament to what could be built from loss and courage and love. Amelia had left Boston with nothing but a carpetbag and $7. She had been disowned, dismissed, declared dead to her family. But she had survived. She had thrived. She had found in the Wild West something she had never had in Boston's mansions, a home. Not a house, but a home. A place where she was valued for who she was, not what she represented. A place where love was freely given and unconditionally accepted. A place where her past did not define her future. Years later, when Amelia's grandchildren asked her about her life, about how she came to Nevada, she would smile and say simply, "I was lost, and your grandfather found me." But Vincent would shake his head and correct her gently. "We found each other," he would say, And we built something beautiful. And that was the truth of it. Two people who had lost everything had found each other in the most unlikely place. And together, they had built a legacy that would endure for generations. The Kane Ranch would pass from parents to children, and the story of how it began would be told and retold, a reminder that sometimes the greatest treasures come from the greatest losses. That family who had disowned Amelia, who had chosen pride over love, had lost the chance to know an extraordinary woman. They had lost the opportunity to be part of something real and lasting. They had lost the joy of watching her flourish and grow into her full potential. Their loss had indeed built Vincent's whole world, but it had also built Amelia's world and their children's world, and the world of everyone who was touched by their love and generosity. From rejection had grown acceptance. From loss had grown abundance. From despair had grown hope. And in the end, that was the greatest victory of all. Not that Amelia had survived her family's rejection, but that she had thrived beyond it. Not that she had found a new life, but that she had created exactly the life she was meant to live. Not that she had married a cowboy who loved her, but that she had partnered with a man who saw her worth and spent every day proving it. The sun set on the Kane Ranch, as it had for thousands of nights before, and would for thousands of nights to come. Inside the house, a family gathered around the dinner table, sharing their day and their dreams. At the head of the table, Vincent Kane watched his wife serve the meal she had prepared with her own capable hands, and his heart swelled with gratitude. Beside him, Amelia Kane looked around at the faces of her children, at the man she loved, at the life she had built, and knew beyond any doubt that she was exactly where she belonged. Their loss had built this whole world, and what a beautiful world it was.